Hola, hola! Welcome everybody to Season 3 of the Chicago Techies Podcast, a podcast focused on highlighting the voices of Chicago Techies and their experiences. This season, we will be hearing from seasoned entrepreneurs to rising stars making their mark. We'll dive into their triumphs, their challenges, and all the unique experiences that have shaped their journeys. I'm your host, Ceci Fischer-Benitez. Thanks for joining us. Lynette, welcome. Hi. Thanks for coming to the Chicago Techies Podcast. How are you?
I am so good. I'm thrilled and honored to be here with the amazing, legendary Ceci.
Oh, you're sweet. All right. So for our audience, let's start with your full name, your pronouns, and your current role.
Yeah, my name's Lynette Correa-Velez, pronouns she, ella. So currently I'm the founding director of Tech Launchpad at Kennedy College.
And we'll dive into all of that in a minute. I wanna get to know you first, all the things about you, the makeup, who you are. So I love to hear about your journey from the very beginning. Where did you grow up? What was your childhood like?
Yeah.
And then we'll get started.
Yeah, so I'm actually Boston, Massachusetts native, born and raised. Funny enough, sometimes when I introduce myself, I say that I'm Boston Rican because I definitely feel like the geographical location of Boston, Massachusetts, and being Puerto Rican identified are just really, really influential and part of my salient identities. But my parents are from the Bronx, New York City. And so a lot of the times too, I'll go in and out between like a New Yorican accent, like a Boston Rican accent is really kind of funny. But my parents, they, were childhood sweethearts. They married very young. I think my mom was like 17. And they married in Paterson, New Jersey. And then my dad at the time, he was a welder, and my mom, she was a receptionist at a nonprofit. And my paternal grandmother at the time lived in Boston, Massachusetts, and he ended up having a welding project in Boston, Massachusetts. So they moved to Boston and had me there. I'm the oldest of four, so I have two younger sisters and a younger brother. Two of them ended up being born in the Bronx, New York City, and the baby of the family was born in Puerto Rico because he ended up having a project out there for welding. And then we moved back to Boston from Puerto Rico when I was about 6 years old because he ended up having another work project there. And because the company that he ended up working for and had a contract for in Puerto Rico ended up becoming bankrupt. And so we moved to Boston. I am a Boston Public School alum. Could talk about that if need be. And really, and I was living in inner city Boston. So Boston housing development, more particularly, and in Rosendale, Massachusetts. So I'll take a pause there on that one.
No, you've been around to different places. Pretty cool. So did you spend some time living in Puerto Rico as well?
Yeah, I was really young. I must have been maybe like 5 years old or so, 6 years old. And we were in Caguas, Puerto Rico, which is like about 2 hours south of San Juan. And I have some memories there. We lived in a really nice house. The weather was really hot, and there were a lot of palm trees and coquis. So that's what I remember. And the boy across the street, but we won't talk about that here,
Well, maybe we can if we want to. No, but I've been to Puerto Rico. I mean, I went for the first time a couple of years ago, and I absolutely no, a year ago. Now, a year and a half ago, the babies were 3, and I loved that trip. It was so fun. I loved the beach, and it was great. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about your education. You like your public school education, if you want to share about that. But also, I noticed from your LinkedIn and from your bio and the things that I know about you that you studied business management in undergrad. And so I'm curious if what motivated you to pursue a career in business from a young age, because it looks like you you wanted to go into that, no?
I knew. So I also come from a family of entrepreneurs. Although, my parents, I'm a first generation high school graduate, and my parents ended up getting their GED much later in life. And they went to vocational schools shortly after. So my mom ended up becoming a career essential healthcare worker as a senior medical assistant. But they, interestingly enough, they both moonlighted as financial advisors for Smith Barney through Primerica. And that was from the age of 9 till I was about 16. And because I went with my dad to various homes in the suburbs of Boston, was exposed to different areas of the Northeast whenever they had conferences during the summer. It was a really tremendous education for me coming from, the projects of inner city Boston, Massachusetts, and then going to these very wealthy areas of Boston suburbs and throughout the Northeast and New England. And that was because of the access that my dad received through entrepreneurship, right? So they both moonlighted as entrepreneurs, and that was really influential for me at the time. This was like in the 90s. And, and to make some additional money, because it was like the 6 of us, my mom would make arroz dulce and different Puerto Rican pastries, and would take me to sell them door to door, which I completely and utterly hated as a 9, 10-year-old. I just wanted to play with my friends. And, a lot of the times this was like in the winter, and Boston winters are not very similar to Chicago winters, are not exactly forgiving. And I really loved the aspect of, being able to make extra income, having it be unlimited, and quite frankly, being a boss. So when it was time for me to declare a major at Lesley College, I ended up actually graduating from a math and science high school, O'Brien School of Math and Science in Boston. It was part of the examination school system, very similar to here in Chicago, that you have like a selective schools, selective enrollment here in Chicago. So it's a very similar model. So I ended up graduating from there, applied to 6 colleges, and Lesley College gave me a full ride. And I'm so glad that my 17-year-old self made that decision, because I was able to, just have maybe a $10,000 loan to reside on campus my freshman year, my first year. But I was pretty much debt free. And business management to me was an opportunity to learn the skills and information on how to be a people-oriented person, but work with people in the workplace, right? Money makes the world go round, but it is the people who move the money to make the world go round. And that was, interestingly enough, always my thinking, even at the young age of 17.
That's a really definitely smart idea. And I can't recall how if I was even thinking like you were back then. I like to jump forward to the move to Chicago and what was that like? What prompted you to move?
Ooh, girl, that was definitely love in grad school. That should be like a TV show.
You're not the first guest that has said they moved to Chicago for love. Shout out to Niharika.
Love and grad school, honey. So, I ended up doing a lot since my undergraduate years, and part of that was starting my own education, tech, social enterprise. And at the time, I was a CEO of Career Coaching for Kids and founder, as well as a sister company called Chameleon Career Coaching. And I met my husband, and I was in the process of, wanting to go back to school, and be careful what you manifest, because it just might happen. So I met my husband. He was accepted for his PhD at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. And he was like, hey, do you want to come with me? And I was like, well, I think it's a different question you have to ask me, right? And you all can't see this, but I'm lifting up my finger here in the camera. So he did ask the right question, everyone. He asked me to marry him, and I was like, okay. But he was always a big fan of my work and my light as well. He was like, instead of you getting all these certifications, why don't you, get your master's, particularly in tech? And I was like, sure. So applied and got accepted for my master's in tech, also at Urbana-Champaign. And we were two broke graduate students of color that moved from Boston to Urbana-Champaign, Illinois, from 2014 to 2018. And in 2018, he received a research associate role in Chicago at the Research Center for Urbana-Champaign. And so we moved from Urbana-Champaign to Chicago in 2018. And we have been in Chicago ever since. So Chicago's definitely my home, I must say.
I love a good ring story. And I love also, that love is often the influence for a lot of our decisions.
I'm telling you.
But you mentioned your ventures, right? You mentioned that you were a former founder, and you're a founder. I mean, you're career coaching for kids and Chameleon, right?
Yeah, career coaching. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, can you share a little bit more about those educational social enterprises, if you will?
Yeah. So at the time, this was back in 2006, and I won't age myself too much, but I don't mind. This was pre-social media. This was around the height of Skype. So interestingly enough, I was one of the first users of Skype, and it was free, and it's still free for me to this time. I hope they don't charge me after hearing this, right? But I was doing something quite innovative at that time, which is now very normalized, but I was career coaching through Skype, and I was career coaching individually. I was career coaching in groups through Skype. And it was really kind of innovative at the time because most institutions and schools and nonprofit organizations that were partnering with career coaching for kids or Chameleon career coaching for reskilling, upskilling services, they all felt like I had to be in person. So sometimes at the beginning of my business, I was like traveling all across the country in person. But once I introduced these like virtual coaching programs, they were like, yeah, we'll do that. And that way I can make more money. And the companies can save money, right? And so it was an opportunity to give access to individuals that normally wouldn't have access. And even though this was not the terminology at the time, but I was pretty social justice oriented because I was using technology as a way to provide access to information to underserved and under-resourced populations where they normally wouldn't have that access. And that was always really exciting to me, and grateful again to being, to entrepreneurship because of that.
Yeah. And are one of those businesses still around now? Are you still working?
No, I had to disintegrate them for grad school. But grateful for the experience and the opportunity. I mean, it was around for about 10 years. We impacted 30,000 individual learners. And I had a team of about 5 outstanding folks that I'm still in touch with to this day.
That's great. I do love that you mentioned that the social justice approach and that piece. What lessons have you learned that have shaped your approach to leadership and entrepreneurship during these ventures?
Yeah. One huge lesson, one needs capital.
Yes.
I was bootstrapping the entire time. And I even had to have side jobs just to support myself. Because, as I mentioned, I'm a first generation high school and college graduate. And, I didn't have, I didn't come from a wealthy family. I didn't have, a rich uncle or grandparent that can help support my venture. So And there weren't the kind of pipeline programs that exist now, at least in Boston, Massachusetts. That those didn't exist back then in the early 2000s, right? And so again, it wasn't a matter of lack of potential. It was a matter of lack of capital and lack of mentorship, right? And if there were folks that knew me at the time and they were cheerleading me on, there wasn't that level of I see Lynette's potential. Let me mentor her so she could be an even more successful entrepreneur, right? And I was winning awards at the time. So I was making a tremendous impact, but that notoriety wasn't translating to profit, right? And that's something that I don't think enough entrepreneurs talk about.
Yeah, I bet. It sounds like you were juggling a lot too. You were, because they're two separate businesses, right?
Yeah, they were two separate businesses. Career coaching for kids targeted, mostly 8th through 12th graders that needed career development coaching or career coaching. And then Chameleon Career Coaching was for anyone over the age of 18. So college students, executives, at entry, mid-level executive leaders, professional associations that support, various populations of folks that have at least an associate's degree, for example.
This definitely illustrates your commitment to empowering others and working with individuals. So,
for sure.
And from what I know of you as well, you also have a strong lens in DEI, specifically DEAJ, right?
Yes,
DEIAJ.
Yes.
For those that are not super versed in this type of lingo, can you tell folks what DEIAJ stands for and why it's important?
I think it's important. So the breakdown: DEIAJ, diversity, equity, inclusion, access, and justice. Diversity, equity, inclusion, pretty self-explanatory. Access can mean for those that are differently abled, as well as those that identify as first gen. And then justice, because a lot of the times when you're thinking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, there isn't a systemic lens to those changes. So systemic policies, systemic opportunities to those that have been under-resourced, underserved. So the justice piece, really highlights the systemic issues that that are not being highlighted within diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah, and to be completely honest, I hadn't really thought about it either in that sense. And I think I've been studying a lot of DEI methods and theory, and because I'm also still doing this program through eCornell, and right now we're focusing a lot on intersectionality, and I feel like you also have done that. So
yeah,
how do you approach intersectionality, like in your advocacy work, like and just considering the unique challenges that faced by individuals who may belong to multiple marginalized groups?
Yeah. So for me, I understand that individuals that are trying to attain upward socioeconomic mobility, it's not just one challenge, right? It's multiple challenges. And a lot of those challenges are because of lack of access, as I mentioned, right? And so I think a lot about, if an individual identifies as, in my case, as Latina, first gen, right there, you can understand, and I'm from Boston, Massachusetts, even though Boston's a very well-resourced city, that doesn't mean that it's translated to individuals from different area codes, right? And there was actually this nonprofit organization called Opportunity Nation, where they did a research study. And they actually have a really great resource and tool online where you can put a zip code of anywhere in the United States within all 50 states, and it grades the opportunity ladder within that zip code, and it grades it through A through F. And, I haven't seen the information, in several years, so I can't tell you what it is for Chicago or Boston, for example. But just within that, you can identify that individuals who live in a wealthier area have more access than individuals who live in a less invested in area, right? And so knowing all this kind of information and resources and research and data on, what it's like for folks to attain upward socioeconomic mobility brings me to have more compassion and empathy, not only because of my own lived experiences, but I don't want to be the only one. I don't want to be the only one, to have upward socioeconomic mobility. I want all of us to have success and more than a living wage, not just a living wage, but more than a living wage that supersedes inflation, right? And that's another conversation. We won't get into that. But to me, that's important, right? And now that I'm a mom, it just exacerbates it more for me.
Yeah, I mean, everything matters, and all of that encompasses also like generational wealth and
Hands
economic
down.
Empowerment.
Right.
And as you were speaking and sharing all your knowledge, I'm like, all of this experience definitely makes sense to why you are in your role now. And I'm like, I can see the commitment to like fostering diversity in tech, in education.
Yeah.
So I want to transition to talking about your role.
Yeah.
I want to learn how you became involved in tech and the path, and the path that guided you towards your current role, because you're the founding director of Tech Launchpad, at Kennedy King. So can you tell us that path there?
Yeah. So I've always actually been a fan of technology. Again, I was one of the first users of Skype, right? And so, funny enough, this is actually a funny story. The reason I started working at the very young age of 14 is because I approached my parents and I was like, mommy, papi, I want to get a pager, right? And my parents were like, what? I ain't getting you that. You better go get a job if you want that. And if there's anything that you can tell little Lynette, which is very similar to whatever you can tell Lynette now, is no, right? Because to me, that is part of the words of not yet. And so I said, okay. So I went into my school library. I got a book on, resumes for dummies. Put my resume together, and the next week, a friend of mine, informed me of a job at the local health center as like a peer leader, HIV/AIDS peer leader. Again, I was very mature for my age, always, and I applied, got hired, and I ended up getting my pager a month later, right? But then I got very interested in. They would call a couple of years later, there was like refurbished pagers. And there was a local shop, and they still have them here in Chicago, actually, where it's like refurbished, printers
laptops
and computers and, and at the time pagers. And so I would get a bunch of them and try to fix them and then sell them to my friends. Right. And so that to me was like what started my love for tech. And then also wanting to always use technology as a tool to provide access for myself and others for empowerment. And so, fast forward to 2022, I got hired in my role as the founding director of Tech Launchpad in August of 2022. And Tech Launchpad in general is an equity-centered tech initiative that supports all 256 tech education students with access to tech resources and tech opportunities outside of the classroom. So I collaborate with our, tech faculty, staff, and instructors. I collaborate with our director of first-year experience, early college, so high school students that are wanting to take some tech courses, as well as our associate dean of continuing education for those that are taking tech certifications, and one-off tech continuing education courses. And also, because of the tech opportunity space, partner with amazing orgs such as Techeria, Latinas in Tech, Blacks in Tech Foundation, etc., World Business Chicago, Chicago Innovation, and others, to give that access to our students for those various tech opportunities in web, game, software developments, IT networking, and cybersecurity.
Yeah, I loved hearing about it when I first, found out about the organization, like the initiative. Um, there are not many programs, that are especially in 2-year schools,
That's right.
or community colleges that that can offer these like life-changing, career paths. And I was definitely a fan of it when you told me about it, when I met you and we discussed what it was. Now, you're the founding director, so you have a lot of responsibility here. How do you ensure that the initiative remains like centered on racial and gender equity in the tech industry?
Yeah. So funny enough, Kennedy King College is one of the most diverse institutions in the city of Chicago, not only because of geographical diversity. So we're here in the south side of Chicago, which is a historically disinvested community between 63rd and Halsted. But we're a predominantly Black institution. So we're a little over 80% of our students that self-identify as Black identified or African American identified. We're an emerging Hispanic serving institution, so we're at about 15% right now because of all the changes that are happening within the city of Chicago and gentrification within Little Village, Humboldt Park, and Pilsen, for example, they're still fairly known as Latinx communities, but changing demographics are happening there for various reasons. So they're moving to the south side, right? And so, and interestingly enough, in Englewood, particularly the greater Englewood area, there is a large amount of female-headed households. And so, which means most of our students, over 62%, are female identified. And so just by the nature of our student population, I'm able to really center racial and gender equity in tech in a way that positions us very uniquely to not only support our students, but to be, quite frankly, an amazing partner to tech companies that are looking for racial and gender diversity and hiring and retention.
And honestly, you're doing a great job. I see you at a lot of our community like tech events, and you're definitely making you have this presence of like supporting like underrepresented minorities, underserved communities. So kudos to you for your work, because it's a lot of work. But can you share some specific initiatives or programs within the Launchpad that you think have made a significant impact on the community already?
Yeah. So we're still fairly young program and initiative. We're a little over 14 months old. But just within that time frame, I get to be an entrepreneur, which is really, really exciting. And through the support of our amazing president, Dr. Webb Walker, who I report to, and also I'll share, I do co-manage $1 million grant. So I get to also be very creative on supporting our students. So I provide scholarships and stipends, group transportation to tech-related events in the Chicagoland area, for example. So I was able to structure 3 equity-centered programs. One is the Tech Launchpad Scholars Program. The second is the Inclusive Tech Talk webinar series. And the third is next year we'll have our inaugural Tech virtual community and career fair. And we also have an upcoming event for our Family STEAM Day. So this is free and open to the public on Saturday, December 2nd from 11:30 to 2:30 at Kennedy King College. And it's a really cool opportunity for free for any City of Chicago residents to come down, get some light refreshments, and have some cool experiential learning activities with local nonprofits. So we'll have, for example, I play esports there. We'll have Code Your Dreams there. To me, I'm so passionate about assisting those that need the assistance um, for, building generational wealth and closing the racial wealth gap. That, this role, my current role as the founding director of Tech Launchpad is a way that I'm able to serve my purpose.
You just answered this, but my next question was around, inclusion within that local community, and how do you see your work contributing to promoting diversity and inclusion, within the Kennedy King area, and if there are any specific initiatives or partnerships that you are excited about.
Yeah. So aside from what I mentioned, for me, there's always a chance to partner with new partners. So welcome any new partnerships, but one that I'm always thrilled to talk about, aside from what I mentioned, is our local community-based organizations. So we have a partnership with Teamwork Englewood. They're a major player in the Englewood area, providing other resources. So they have like parenting groups, for example. They help the elderly. And another one is Discover Innovation Hub or Lab here in Chatham, which is, just a couple miles down from KKC. So we're partnering for their goals to hire folks for their call center and also robotics processing engineering roles. So, I mean, there's so much going on in Chicago. Chicago tech ecosystem is so vast.
Yeah.
There's not enough time on this podcast to talk about it, but there's some other partnerships in the pipeline that I'm excited about. Don't want to mention them yet because the ink is not dry.
Yeah.
But the interest is there, and to me, that's the most exciting part. I don't have to sell Tech Launchpad, too in depth because people get it. At least in Chicago, and to me, that's always thrilling, and makes the work really exciting.
Yeah. No, I'm a huge fan of it. I think I was doing some reading the other day about it, just kind of looking at what are the programs like. Are they accredited, non-credit, and they're both. Like you can have, you guys offer credit and non-credit programs, and that includes like cybersecurity, game design, software development, like web development, like even I think IT, like networking systems.
IT networking.
Yeah. I mean, I think those are definitely careers that are in demand, and and what a better way than to include them in the communities that are often underserved too.
That's right.
So it really seems like these efforts are truly a commitment, right, to social innovation, to workforce equity. It really addresses disparities in access to technology and representation in the tech industry. So I feel like this initiative that aligns with the city's goal right now of creating a robust tech pipeline, and fostering this inclusive tech economy. So I've been reading a lot about Chicago initiatives as well. So I feel like this is definitely in line with all those goals.
Yeah, the timing is really interesting, and I hope to continue to make a tremendous impact in partnership with amazing local organizations who are also doing the work, because it can't just be one organization. It's got to really be a true multiple public-private partnerships in various spaces. So it's got to be the for-profit employers, the small tech startups, the big tech companies, the professional associations, the higher ed institutions, the on the ground, local nonprofits that are serving in various ways. So it really, truly, I mean, it's multi-layered and multi-leveled partnerships for sure that can really make some movement within the tech ecosystem and beyond.
Yeah, I mean, you're sharing great nuggets here. So what piece of advice would you share with individuals that are aspiring to become leaders in the tech industry, particularly from these underrepresented backgrounds?
Yeah. So I know my story really well, and I know my journey really well. And because of that, it gives me the confidence to walk into spaces, whether they're meant for me or not, and say, I deserve to be here. And so, I encourage folks from various walks of life to own their journey, own their respective intersectional identities, and go into tech proud and confident, and you deserve to be there, right? And they deserve to have your talents, whatever they may be, at their respective companies within the tech industry. So that is one very big advice that I wish someone would have told me many, many years ago. I would have started this process sooner, but I'm glad I started it nevertheless. And another thing is, I even tell my students, if you go to these events and do show up, make sure you also follow up. So show up, show out, but also follow up. And I'm like the follow-up queen. My students call me, Lynette, you're the follow-up queen. And with that, I'm able to follow up and build relationships, right? And so nothing happens in this world without relationships, and getting folks to get to know you well, and you getting to know folks well, and really care, right? That's something that's important for me also. I think I was probably an anthropologist in a past life or something, because I'm really super curious about people and like their stories and their journeys. And to me, I think that's what really makes a difference.
Yeah, no, and speaking about like building relationships, like how can these tech leaders, these tech companies all across the city, um, and and even our own, right, the where we work, like how can tech leaders actively contribute to closing the racial and gender wealth gaps in the tech sector?
Yeah. There's so many ways. But one of them is to create policies and programs, so the 2 Ps, internally, so that those policies and programs can be opened up to institutional partnerships like Tech Launchpad at KKC. A lot of internal policies and programs are only open to 4-year degree students, and therein lies the systemic inequities, right? And lack of diverse tech talent. Because, for example, most Latinx identified students start off at 2-year community colleges in the United States, right? And that's a statistic that's really well known. So I'm surprised tech leaders are not hip to that data, and haven't tried to make policies and programs sooner to assist in their diversity, recruiting, and retention goals. And so to me, that's like the biggest thing, being able to upgrade internal policies and programs for access to diverse talent.
Yeah, I mean, I was one of those numbers too. I started my career, my college career at a community college before I moved to a 4-year school. So
there you go.
That's definitely something that they should be looking into, right? Now, before we start wrapping up, are there any special projects that you have coming up that you're excited about?
So the one that I'm very excited about is the upcoming Family STEAM Day. In my mind, yes, there's all these amazing programs and support for existing students, but what if you're not a student and you still want to have access to tech activities, tech programs that's free, right? And so Family STEAM Day is free and open to the public. It's on Saturday, December 2nd from 11:30 to 2:30 at Kennedy King College in our Tech Launchpad lab. And it will also be in our Innovation One lab, which is our Apple lab. And most folks don't know that we have those 2 tech labs. So it's an opportunity for community members to come through, say hello, meet me, meet our amazing local tech community-based organizations that are going to be providing the experiential learning activities, and just have a good time. So, and it's open to all ages.
Yeah, that's great. All right, and let's wrap up. So, looking ahead, what are your future goals and aspirations, either personally or professionally?
Ooh, I have so many, Ceci. I promised my son that I would live to the age of 101. So I got a good, less than 60 years in me. But my short-term goals is to, quite frankly, be able to scale Tech Launchpad at KKC, to hopefully serving, over 250 students. Um, to be able to also maybe have some programs outside of KKC, outside of my day job, maybe have a for-profit business as a co-working space, for example. So, to me, the future's bright, but tech will always be at the forefront of that. So, hoping that that comes to fruition in some way in the near future.
I love that. It's said out loud now, and it's been manifested, and I cannot wait to collaborate and help achieve, and however I can, your goals. So that's great.
Thank you.
Yeah. So now, for anyone that wants to connect with you, or anyone that wants to kind of keep this conversation going, or that has more questions about you and your trajectory, how can people connect with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn's the best way. Lynette Correa-Velez, regular spelling. For now, and they can always find me. They Google Tech Launchpad. My contact information is there, but my email is lcorrea-velez@ccc.edu. So LinkedIn or email, but preferably LinkedIn.
Awesome. Okay, and I'll put that on the show notes as well, so people can see that. Well, thank you, Lynette, for joining me today. This was you're a breath of fresh air, honestly, and your wealth of experience and education to empowering individuals with all your roles and commitment to fostering diversity in tech and education are truly inspiring.
Thank you.
I think this conversation was really rich and enlightening and impactful, and I hope that it's providing some guidance for folks. And I truly appreciate you and everything that you do. So thank you for creating these inclusive spaces and environments for students and for people like me to kind of engage with you. And, thank you for everything that you do.
Absolutely. And, thank you, Ceci, for creating this space as well as, a fellow mom, Latina, LGBTQ identified. I mean, you are one of my sheroes. If I haven't told you before, I'm telling you now. So
I appreciate that.
Thank you for Chicago Techies. This has been a great experience, and I look forward to seeing you continue to shine.
Thank you. That's the best. You are the best.
Abrazo.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Chicago Techies Podcast. If you enjoyed listening, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review on iTunes. Let's continue the conversation on social media. We are at Chicago Techies on all social media platforms. Thank you again, and we'll see you next week.